Hey there, good evening, and welcome to another interview with London Celtic Punks. My name's Andy, and it gives me a lot of pleasure tonight to interview Mr. Ian Prowse, who is on the verge of releasing his fourth solo studio album, One Hand on the Starry Plough. Ian, thanks for joining us this evening at London Celtic Punks.
Hello, mate. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, well, thank you for joining. It's always a pleasure. So, the first question I have about the upcoming album, which, as I say, is called One Hand on the Starry Plough, is how have things been going with the pre buzz for the album? Because it comes out on the 11th of February, doesn't it?
Yeah, it comes out on the 11th of February. We put a song out of it just before Christmas. I loathe to call them singles these days, but it's
Hmm.
a song release, whatever it is, called Battle. And I've obviously there's been people close to me who've heard the record, and a few people now in the past week, I think, people who've heard, journalists and so forth, have heard it and have been getting in touch. So I now know the general vibe about how people feel about it, which is always a nervy thing because you
Of
know
course, yeah.
people have every right to not like it. So, but I'm getting some absolutely beautiful feedback about this record. So yeah, excited.
That's good. That's good to hear about the feedback because I'm a musician myself, and you never quite know. I mean, I think a lot of what you get is positive, but you're always going to get a bit of the negative as well, aren't you?
Well, I've been doing it a long time, since my first album came out in '92. So here we are, in 2022, and after a very strange couple of years,
Yes.
it's odd, but it's what I do. So I'm really excited for people to hear it. You're always excited for people to hear your new records, but there's something particularly special about this one. Uh, Off the back of our last one, which people really enjoyed as well. So it was a tall order to follow it up, but I think we've done it.
That's good. And it was one question I was going to ask is that obviously the album was created during the pandemic. What did you find easiest and hardest about making this album during the pandemic that's turned everybody's lives upside down?
Well, it was just hard to find the time when things got really badly locked down. I couldn't get to the studio. My studio is out in Essex, in a little tiny little Saxon village called Canewden, way out in Essex. And I couldn't get there. But my best friend, one of my best mates, who is my producer as well, I couldn't get to him. He couldn't get to me. So for 2 3 months at a time, I was busy doing my Friday night lockdown shows, and he was busy. Tony Kiley actually started to paint the fence, so it took him about 3 months to paint the fence.
Yeah,
So
sounds
it
like he
was
had
just
time on his
weird,
hands.
it was just so we were away from it. We'd already started working on it, but as the lockdown went along, I wrote a few more songs, which were, they came up from the ground of the feeling that we were all having together during the pandemic, which added to the record. But very, very early on, Tony Kiley, my producer, said to me, "There's, I don't know what you're on up there, but there's built-in immense hope in all of this music that you're sending me and these songs that you're writing." So we knew early on that we had a thread of joyous defiance was going to be going on.
Joyous Defiance. Good. It sounds good. I like it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the word hope. That's something that I'm aware of as well. The album, or a lot of it, is about hope, isn't it? And about the, hanging on to hope despite the terrible time we've all had. Tell us a little bit more about that and about how the One Hand on the Starry Plough album title came out of that.
Yeah, well, that's the second song, "Holy Holy River," in the outro of the song, which is a bit like my "Hey Jude." Really, it goes on for about five
Yes.
minutes. We have the gospel choir in there, and I'm just riffing on singing this, that, and the other. And one of the lines that I threw out as I was writing the song out on the balcony here in Liverpool city centre where I wrote it was got one hand on the Starry Plough, and there ain't nothing gonna stop me now. And it just came out. So, how much did I think about it? I didn't. How much did I feel of it? All of it. You know what I mean?
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of, when I look at it now, the actual plough, the Starry Plough, was in front of me. And if you live in the city centre, there's that much light pollution here. You very rarely see the stars. You can't. It's, say, one night per month you'll see the stars. And you're not always looking at them, obviously. But this one night, the plough was ahead of me, just shining brightly. And it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because it's been there my whole life, looking down on me.
But you don't always look up at them, do you?
And, you don't. So there's a celestial and cosmic feel to it. And when I look, when you look at the stars, and sometimes it just blows your mind as you're looking at it. There's this feeling of immense humanity, and it makes me think of my daughter as well, because there's one thing about looking at the stars, like, you can't put your hand, or you can't put your finger on the glory of it all, and it's a bit like becoming a father. I just, when it happened to me that I became a parent, the cosmic aspect of it, I can't put my finger on how amazing it is and beautiful it is. I mean, it's bloody hard as well. That amount of love rushes into your world, and it for some reason it gives me a similar feeling to looking at the stars. So that was in it. That was when I one hand on the Starry Plough. So there's a whole celestial thing. Now, me being me, the Starry Plough has other meanings. The Starry Plough is a socialist Republican flag from the Easter Revolution in Ireland.
1916.
The actual, in 1916. The term "one hand" on there, I picked up from a great African American spiritual song called "Eyes on the Prize," which I got via Bruce Springsteen, obviously, which is one hand on the gospel plough.
Right.
So there's that in it. And then there's this in the artwork that the record company have done, which is just beautiful. Part of it, he incorporates all of these themes and all these things. And in it, I'm approaching this building from miles away, and you can see me coming behind. This is on the big fold-out vinyl sleeve. And as you get closer, you can see that the building I'm approaching is a pub called One Hand on the Starry Plough. And I love that he's done that as well, because you don't know if the photograph of me is in the deep past or the deep future, and it could be either. And as somebody who's spent plenty of time in pubs, playing music, talking about football, politics, and the world that we live in, they've managed to get that in as well. So there's a lot of levels to the type of song, but the main one is the celestial one, and just looking at the actual constellation itself, and having one hand on it is basically a reference to defiance, I suppose.
To defiance, and to never give up. Exactly, like they say, like you say in the song Holy Holy River, which is track 2 off the album. It's one of my favourites. The other one I really liked when I heard the record was My Old Black Tie. Can we? Is it right to call that a ballad? We can call it a ballad, I think, can't we?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that was the last song to be written for the record, actually.
Oh, was it now?
I'm exactly where I am now in my bedroom. It just came out almost fully formed over 24 hours of playing it. And it's a true song, because I really do have an old black tie, which is tattered, and I don't ever put it away because of the age I am. I seem to be going to funerals every 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah. Well, because of the times that we've all just lived through, there seem to be more of them. So old aunties and uncles, friends, parents, I'm very fortunate. Mine are both still with us, and just mates. So but the song isn't depressing. It's not supposed to be depressing.
No, it isn't.
It's supposed to be uplifting, because the line is to whoever's funeral it is at that time. And I got a really dear friend called Grant Hartley, and I couldn't get to his father's funeral because of the COVID restrictions. And I kind of wrote the song a little bit for him to say, I couldn't make it. I would have been there, but the key part of the chorus is the line there. What is it? I'm here. I'm here with you anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I'm with you all. I'm with you all today, or
All
something like that, isn't it? Yeah,
I'm with you all the way.
that's it. That's
So,
right. Yeah.
so again, it's not a morose song in that sense. It has within it, some defiance, a lot of hope, and a lot of community.
Absolutely.
So that's
Yeah.
the idea.
Okay, great. Well, I can certainly, to people watching, I can certainly recommend listening to that song. It's almost kind of like the center, not the centerpiece of the album, but it's almost in the middle of the record.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Uh,
I'm very glad that you like that one, because people have been coming up and telling me which ones they really dig, and people, quite a few people have said they really appreciate that. I mean, Tony Carley's production, he's just nailed the atmosphere on it,
I
and he's
think he
done.
certainly has. It's very atmospheric, isn't it? And I was taking a walk this evening, and I had that song going around in my head a little bit, and it's almost a sort of song. I mentions the stars again, I think, doesn't it? Does it mention the stars? Do you remember? Do you
Probably.
remember? It probably does. I can't
Oh,
remember the lyric
yeah,
now.
do
It's
you remember
conveniently
that
gone out of my
story,
head.
guy? Yeah, we
Yeah,
all we
exactly.
all we all have that memory in our lives of that one time you were somewhere and you looked up and it really struck you how many stars there are in the sky, and it really. And I was with the great. I went to see the great Miles Hunt from the Wonder Stuff on his 50th birthday, and he lives in the middle of the countryside, so there's no pollution of
Yeah.
any sort, light pollution. It's just pitch black. And I was with him, and we both came out the pub, and I looked up and I just went, oh, it took my breath away.
Hmm.
What's going on up there? And he goes, this is what it's like every night,
Yeah.
and he comes out every night and looks at it. And I just couldn't believe it. You could almost see no sky. It was just stars.
Must be
Billions
incredible.
and billions. And I love that thing of there are more stars in the sky, not planets, stars in the sky out there rather, than there are grains of sand on Earth. So if you
Yeah, I
imagine,
can believe that. I can believe
you
that.
imagine one beach and that amount of grains of sand, all the beaches, all the ways, there's more stars.
No.
So that it just blows your mind, but I love it. I really love it.
Yeah, and you round here we see some, but when you've got lights in the street and everything, you only really see the big ones. Like we can see Orion, we can sometimes see the Great Plough.
Yeah,
Ursa Major is the technical term for it, and if you follow the right hand side of it up, it takes you to the North Star. But you can only really see the big ones with the light pollution.
yeah,
But we're going to talk about the album a little bit more later on. But for again for our viewers and our readers watching this interview, I thought we'd go all the way back to the start. So if we go right back to the very start in Liverpool, you were born in Liverpool in 1964, right?
I was born. I'm from Ellesmere Port, actually, which is
Ellesmere
across
Port,
the
right?
river, which is a
Uh-huh.
Liverpool overspill area in
Right.
1960,
Hmm.
10th of January 1964. So that's there's a little. It's on the Wirral Port, and
Hmm.
it's a place called Little Sutton. And I'm from a council estate, so I am a council estate kid. I'm a product of the cradle to the grave, uh, you know, um, orthodoxy that was brought into the country after the Second World War. With the great 1945 Labour administration. So I got free education, I got free health, and we got a lovely council house to be brought up in, which was amazing because I was
Yeah.
brought up in a street with everybody else in the street was Liverpool overspill. The whole town of Ellesmere Port is Liverpool overspill. There's no rugby or any any discernible like northernness in that sense. It's Liverpool and Everton, and it's a Scouse place.
Yeah.
So that was my we're a satellite of the big city, and yeah.
It's probably quite concentrated. I know what you mean. I know
Yeah,
what you're
and
talking
it
about.
well, it'd be like there's plenty of places outside Glasgow. I think East Kilbride and places like that.
Yeah, we're not far from East Kilbride here. It's about a
Where was
15-minute
Jerry
drive up the road.
Rafferty from? I think Paisley. That's
I don't know where Jerry Rafferty was from, but Midge Ure from Ultravox was from Cambuslang, which is even closer.
oh
So
yeah, okay. So the same sort of thing, that's that you're kind of revolving around the big city, and so that affects everything. That affects all of your lives, and on all of the things you're brought up with, how all of your friends that you've got, and the music that you listen to, and it was a very, very traditional working class upbringing.
mm,
And I loved it because I was brought up in the street with loads of other young kids my age, and we all
yeah,
just, I am the classic, when they say you used to go out at 10 in the morning and come back at like when your tea was ready at 6 o'clock, and they wouldn't even ask where you'd been,
good times.
have you been playing in that disused quarry again, that sort of
Yeah,
thing, and nobody was bothered. So yeah.
reminds me of some stories my dad told me about when he grew up. Not that my dad is Kent through and through, but
Yeah.
anyway. So yeah, what I wanted to ask actually, we've touched upon your childhood a little bit, but how did you get into Irish music originally? Did you grow up in an Irish family, or did you just sort of absorb the Celtic music that was around you in and around Liverpool?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I could take 5 hours answering it. Um, the Any Irishness I would lay claim to would be through my father's side. He has Irish blood, and his mum, my nan, basically she looked Irish. She had really tight, soft curls, and she always had a headscarf pulled tight, and she was actually stone deaf from the age of 7. So
Oh,
and
okay.
she just looked like a Gael. Um, so that's that side of the family. My dad's from Birkenhead, so that would be it. But where I actually entered into it in terms of music was the Waterboys Fisherman's Blues album.
Hmm.
I was already playing music, trying to get somewhere. We were like into the Style Council and Commissat Angels, remember them, and some other bands. And I had some good, not bad songs, but then when I heard the Celtic Soul via the Waterboys, everything came into focus for me. I immediately started to write proper decent songs, and I got a band together around all of that, which was Pele.
Pele,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so and we got signed to Polydor in '91. Um, but in terms of Irishness, I remember somebody told me when I was really young. They said, bearing in mind how we grew up during the Troubles, and it was on the telly every night, and I can't remember which particular atrocity had happened from me, any of it, either side. And I remember somebody said to me, maybe somebody in the street, said, "Don't worry, they'll never bomb Liverpool because there's too many Irish people in Liverpool." And I can remember just being struck like, "Wow, what?" So yeah, everybody in Liverpool's Irish, so they wouldn't go and bomb their own. And I remember I was only very young, but going, "Oh, thank God for that." But then I thought, well, that's really odd, isn't it? How's that come to pass? Because I've asked my dad since he had one of those tests, those DNA tests.
Yeah.
He discovered he had Irish blood, and he's Catholic as well, and all that. And he looks the part. I said, "Didn't you know anything about it?" And he goes, "Nobody ever talked about it."
Yeah, strange. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So he doesn't know anything, and it's so I'm the one who's gone and found it all out and brought it back in.
Mhm. Well, sometimes that's the way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes several generations, I suppose. I
It's
suppose.
funny because it's like you know, once the door was opened, once I'd heard that record, and then I heard other records, other Celtic folk records, and I heard, you know, where they got them from, you know, the Raggle Taggle Gypsy and all of that sort of
Yeah.
stuff, the whole world and a whole well from which the Waterboys were drawing, then everything opened up for me in my own imagination of the music that I really loved. Something about it struck me right in the core, you know. And I remember it was, I think there's a great Waterboy song called "When Will We Be Married," and Steve Wickham is playing a reel in the middle of it, or a jig, whatever it is.
I think it's
And
a reel. I think I know the one you mean.
yeah, okay, yeah. So it's in, and he does a descending line, and it just went into me like an arrow, and it was, it's this classic thing of you know, Irishness. It was incredibly joyous and sorrowful at the same time, you
Hmm.
know, which is, you know, the fuel that I've run on as a songwriter ever since. I found my muse with it, you know, and I
Mm.
knew that that was me, and it was something that I was looking to discover all my life. And then when it came, it's never gone away.
No, same thing with me. I
Yeah.
first properly got into Irish music on Paddy's Day 2012. I was living in Berlin at the time. I lived in Germany for 6 years when I was in my 20s. My wife's German. And yeah, my friend Susie introduced me to, she said, "Oh, I'm going to celebrate Paddy's Day. Do you fancy coming down?" Because they have a lot of Irish pubs in Berlin. And yeah, I went there, and there were bands playing, you know, all sorts of well known Irish standards, you know, and jigs, reels, polkas, and everything. And it I became a huge fan
Yeah.
after that, and it changed my life, certainly in terms of my what I was doing with my music, because I'd always been into, you know, like rock and stuff like that as a kid. But yeah, I, you know, sort of got one or two of my own bands together. I still write my own Irish music solo stuff. So yeah, it changed my life as well. And I think I don't know of any other style of music that can be quite as romantic but quite as joyous at the same time. You get both, I think, with Irish music.
I think so. I think so. And, you know, I never set out to write Irish songs or anything like that. The songs that I write just come out, you know,
Mm.
and it just so happens that a lot of them are made better by some Celtic soul stylings, you know. I remember the first time I ever had a rehearsal with a fiddle, and she made every single song sound 50% better. And this is before, you know, this is way before Pele. We got somebody in, and as I showed her little bits and riffs, everything she did just sounded wonderful. And I knew that I'd opened the door to that. So it's a, you know, if it hits you and it moves you, then it ain't never going away, you know. So,
No,
and then of
certainly not.
course, you know, for me personally, it it's all mixed in with the city of Liverpool. You know,
Hmm. Absolutely.
that I guess is the real core of my Irish obsession. Liverpool, from a historical point of view, in Gaeilge, in the language, you know, the Irish language, um, New York is New York, London is London, Montreal is Montreal. There's only one place outside of Ireland which has its own name, and that's Liverpool. And in Irish, it's Leopold. And the reason for this is that the Irish just consider Liverpool to be Irish, you know. So it's the only place outside of Ireland which has its own name in Irish, which says everything.
Yes.
Says everything.
I'd read the name in Irish before, but I didn't know what it was. I'm learning Scottish Gaelic rather than Irish
Brilliant.
Gaelic, but
Yeah,
yeah, in Scottish Gaelic it's completely different. I can't even remember what it is, but looks nothing like Liverpool. I know what it is in Welsh. In Welsh it's Lerpwl.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
Lerpwl.
again, you know, this is part of the thing, because you know Wales is just there. I
Yeah.
can see Wales in the morning from my window here in the
Uh-huh.
city centre. So you know Wales is really important to Liverpool, and Wales is you know, the Irish Republic was born on a Welsh hillside in Frongoch, where they put all of the prisoners from the 1916 revolution, Michael Collins and everybody, and the British made the immense mistake of, for the first time ever, of putting all the rebels from all four corners of Ireland together in the same place. in the, they said, well, stick all those, traitorous paddies over in that place, that godforsaken place in Frongoch, and lock them all up. Of course, the first thing they did was fellas from Mayo and Kerry and Roscommon and Donegal all got together and went, what are we going to do next?
Yeah, they plotted.
This is revolution, and this is where Michael Collins said we're going to enter into guerrilla warfare, and they just G'd each other up, and it was known as the University of Revolution. And they were, Westminster again was so stupid they didn't realise that there on a Welsh hillside was fermenting the Irish independence movement. And what was happening every morning was the Welsh people were coming in who were running the camp, and they were who were like cooking the food or cleaning up or doing whatever they did to keep the camp running, and they all spoke Welsh, So Michael Collins is saying to his comrades in the morning, "How come these people have still got their language and we haven't?" So they were inspired by the Welsh people as well. So I love that. Love that.
Yeah, the only language in the I mean, obviously the Republic of Ireland's not in the United Kingdom anymore, but the only language in the United Kingdom that has any official status is Welsh, of course, only in Wales, of course. But is it, I mean, perhaps perhaps you know a bit more about this than I do. Is Welsh on the whole doing better than Irish?
Yeah,
Maybe it is, I don't know.
yeah,
I think it probably is actually, isn't it? It's
oh,
like,
it is.
yeah.
It's propped up. It doesn't. Sorry, rather, it doesn't need propping up. It's a living, organic thing. And if you go out to, especially in North Wales,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
if you go to Carnarvon or Bangor or any of those,
Bala.
Bethesda, yeah, it's 100% basically, 100%, and it's absolutely solid. Not so much down south, and it's maybe because the mountains shadowed it from the effect of whatever the English were bringing in, but they managed to keep it going,
Yeah.
and it's a living, breathing thing. Unlike Irish and Scots, basically, they kind of need propping up via Gael talks and so forth. So, you know,
Yeah, it's and sort of like efforts like what the SNP are doing up here in Bord na Gaelic and stuff like that
yeah.
in Edinburgh. But yeah, my wife and I went. We stayed overnight in Wales one night last summer in a town called Bala, and I think
Oh
about
yeah, no ballet.
75 to yeah, it's about 75 to 80% of the people there spoke Welsh. We could even hear some people having conversations in Welsh in the street or in
Yeah,
shops, and I loved it because
amazing, isn't
the
it?
first time I went to Wales, I was a schoolboy. I was 10. We went to Llandudno, and yeah, it just brought back so many. It was like stepping back 20 years
Well,
into my childhood,
Frongo,
I suppose.
the place I was talking about, where the prison camp was, is about 15-minute drive from Bala.
From Bala, okay. I've probably
When it
seen it
was,
on signs then. Yeah,
yeah, in 2016, it was the centenary of all the prisoners going into Frongoch,
yeah,
and I took the great Irish singer Damien Dempsey and the immense Irish traveller actor John Connors out there because they both had relations who'd been in the Rising. And there was a wonderful ceremony during the day whereby if you had relations who were there, you could stand up and say their name. It was
mm,
really moving.
can
So
imagine. Yeah.
yeah, wonderful, wonderful history.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It was Kilmainham. Hang on, am I getting this right? Kilmainham. That's how you pronounce it,
Yeah,
isn't it? That was the
Kilmainham
jail
Jail.
where the 14 leaders, including James Connolly, were executed in the end, wasn't it? Kilmainham Jail. Yeah. Yes. Very, very sad, and obviously, well, it angered a lot of people, and just well, created even more fuel for the Irish independence, which, well, 5 years later or 4 years later, was
Yeah,
was there basically. But
yeah.
anyway, to talk a little bit more about the music, after Pele, which we've spoken about, you formed your band Amsterdam, and one of the big songs that Amsterdam has been known for is a song called "Does This Train Stop on Merseyside," which I've listened to, and one very, very famous musician who anyone who likes Irish music will have heard of, who got hold of the song and did a version of it, was of course Christy Moore. And how did Christy come to cover that song? Was it because when you did your MA, you wrote about Christy and somehow like that started a relationship, or how did it work?
No, it was more the other way around. He was playing in Manchester, and a guy, as Christy tells the story, a guy tapped on the side of the van as they were leaving to go to Holyhead to go back to Ireland, and he said, "I've made you." It was a guy called Andy Glover. I've since met Andy on several occasions. He said, "I've made you some music to listen to on the way back."
That's nice.
Lovely thing to do.
Yeah.
And Christy tells me that they put it on, and I think "Does This Train" was very early on in the CD, and he said they didn't listen to any other song; they just played it all the way down. And Christy said, "I'm doing this song. I'm doing this song."
Nice.
Immediately, just was moved by it, And he basically emailed the Amsterdam website, and I see Christy Moore. I think that's not.
It's got to be spam or something, isn't it?
Yeah. I responded and said, "Yeah, it's me." And he goes, "Give us your number." So then he just started to phone me, and we became good friends. And he's really funny, And then I went to see him do it for the first time at Hammersmith Odeon, and then went out to Ireland and watched him do it out in Turles and Tipperary, and I've seen him 100 times since. And it was beautiful because the song had come to the fore because John Peel had such an emotional reaction to it.
Yes,
and
I remember reading.
Moore has such an emotional reaction to it. And then, as it's gone on, more and more people have had that reaction to it. So, but it's Christy that put the song on the map without a shadow of a doubt. If you go on YouTube, there's hundreds of cover versions of it, and most of them are doing Christy's version of it, And I know he still does it himself, plays the song and says some beautiful things about it. So, what an honor for Christy.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same word. What a great honor.
What an honor. It's just, if I ever forget it for a month or two, and then somebody reminds me, or somebody's at a gig and he's doing it, I just get the same warm buzz all over again.
Can imagine, definitely. And is it true that "Does This Train Stop on Merseyside" that was taken from a question that a kid asked a Yorkshire policeman on the day of the Hillsborough disaster? Have I got that right, or am I slightly wrong?
That's the story that Christy tells, and I like it. Which isn't necessarily where I got it from, but I'm loving Christy's interpretation.
Right. So, shall we stay with Christy's interpretation, or are you comfortable with telling us where the title really came from?
I think it's a case of Chinese whispers that Christy's heard from somebody, but the idea was that he said, and I've seen him say it in concert, that it was a kid after the immense trauma of Hillsborough. There's somebody wandering around the station, a young Scouser, asking that question. No, the actual title is a play on words of a very, very early, not very well known Bruce Springsteen song. So that's about "Does This Bus Stop 82nd Street in New York?" So it was that would have been something that was in my head. But my song and Springsteen songs are completely different things. So that would have been part of whatever I was laying at the back of my brain, I think. But I'd rather go with Christy's much more poetic explanation.
Yeah, it's kind of strange how things get picked up, isn't it? And you think, well, I kind of like that version.
He must have heard it via some Chinese whispers or whatever, and I don't care what people take from it or whatever it is. It really doesn't matter, does it? It's one of those things when you write a song like that, you don't own it anymore because it's been played that often by that.
Yeah, I guess it's
everybody else's song now, and I just always treat it. I never ever phone that song in because of those key lines. The last verse are so important to me, and we've had such a struggle here in the city to attempt to make the rest of the world see about the amount of lies that were told about the people here, that for me it just still stands as a solid beacon of resistance against what people say about this city and the people in this city. Even to this day, you only have to go onto Twitter and you'll see some wanker thinking they're funny mentioning Heysel or always the victim, or any of those shouts which they say, oh, it's not about Hillsborough. It's about Hillsborough. We know it's
Mm.
about Hillsborough.
When you mentioned Heysel, I think I know what you're referring to. Was it Georges Jacques or Jacques Georges was the president of FIFA or something at the time, wasn't he? And he created a storm when he compared Hillsborough to Heysel, and then realised he'd made a mistake and apologised and said, "Oh, sorry, it wasn't people fighting. It
It's
was,
like
you know."
in the the European Nations Cup last year, and people were saying, when people broke into Wembley and all that, and they're saying, oh, this is like when fans, ticketless fans, broke in through the gates like Hillsborough. That didn't happen. So
No.
again, it's just people's synonymous in their minds that there's football trouble by the fans. It's another Hillsborough. So it's an
It's very
ongoing.
annoying, isn't it, when the truth. I mean, all you need to do is be accused of something, and that's enough to make people think that it's true. Like
Yeah,
this isn't about football at the minute, and perhaps an opinion that not everybody will agree with. But Michael Jackson, for example, I
yeah.
don't believe he was a paedophile at all, personally. I mean, paedophilia is absolutely horrible, of course, but I don't think he was, because I've done a lot of research on it, and it just does not add up. There is loads and loads of evidence to suggest that he wasn't. But as soon as he's been accused, and of course, given the fact that he, changed his appearance with the plastic surgery and
Well,
stuff,
he was
that
odd
yeah,
guy, so yeah.
yeah, that's enough for some people. Some people are just like, oh, he must have done it, and all they've done is like, watched a couple of shitty documentaries which were full of inaccuracies anyway.
Well, as the opening song on One Hand on the Starry Plough states, and the opening line of the opening song, uh, justice ain't a virtue, justice ain't a headline. The kind of justice you want, you get it down the spike mines.
Yeah,
Uh, because justice is, it's cold and hard and true. It's not to be manipulated or whatever it is. So whether it's Michael Jackson or whoever, all sides have to be heard, and and decisions made like that. Or just casting an accusation at somebody can ruin somebody's life.
of course,
Both of them, I
especially
have
with
had
people
that shit.
being
You know,
with people being idiots about it on social media. I mean, social media's places like Twitter are stupid places sometimes, I think.
well, yeah, this whole idea of being, tried by social media is awful. You
It's
know,
crap, isn't it? It's not a proper
follow.
conviction.
No, no,
No.
no.
No. Anyway, so we've spoken a little bit about Amsterdam. There is one more question I'll ask before we talk more about the upcoming album again. So, you did your master's degree in Irish music, Irish studies it was at Liverpool, and you were focusing on the role of Christy Moore in Irish music. So, tell us a bit more about what particularly you focused on when it came to Christie's music.
Well, I I moved into the city centre in 2006 and decided to do a degree for fun to keep me out of the pub. And I really, really enjoyed it. So I did a master's degree. And by this time, I'd become friendly with Christy. And I decided that my thesis would be locate the role of traditional and Irish music via the work of Christy Moore. Who better? He
Mm.
is the uncrowned king of all Ireland. Certainly musically. So and he agreed to help me, which was absolutely lovely of him. And he sent me countless amounts of emails. And we had countless amount of conversations, and it was just what's lovely about it is that what I used a term in it which I was made up with at the time. The four horsemen of the if the four horsemen of the Irish apocalypse are drink, romantic republicanism, the church, the
Mm.
Catholic Church, and what was the other one? It wasn't horse racing. It was something else. Anyway, whatever it was, I put, and Christy has fallen foul to at least three of these, and they've been a major thing in his life, not in a particularly good way. Sometimes, he famously had a heart attack due to his alcoholism, but got through all of that. And so, because he's a fascinating guy because he survived that, and he's still managed to. He's fucking fearless, man. He really is. You know, Christy Moore, if he thinks something needs highlighting, if something's wrong, he will say it, you know, and he would at the height of the Troubles, you know, when anything to do with Sinn Féin or the Republican movement was banned in the South, Christie was doing benefit gigs to get vans to take people to the H blocks and back. So he's actively involved in the movement, you know, in the struggle. So, and he didn't care. He was doing it. You know what I mean? He's like, and then he, you know, after Enniskillen, the unjustifiable atrocity of Enniskillen, he backed away. And I just, and even to this day, if he wants to say something about something or other, he doesn't care if they're going to go, if RTE go, oh, we're not going to have him on this week because he's saying this, that, and the other. He'll just say it, you know.
A bit like Shane McGowan, then maybe.
Absolutely, but more effective for me because, you know, Shane is obviously he's blighted by his alcoholism, you know, and he's not as coherent. Whereas Christy just has that. It's like granite, you know. He's got something to say, and he will not be swayed from it, and he will stand up for the underdog on all occasions. And I admire him immensely and take great inspiration from his. You know, we won't take any bullshit.
Right. I'd like to meet him or have a chat with him. He sounds like a
he's
great
really,
guy.
really funny. And every time I see him, he takes the piss out of me for an hour or whatever. But he's really funny and he's really warm. And I've learned a lot from him. And he always comes at everything from a socialist perspective, always, you know, a communal socialist perspective. And I love him, absolutely love him.
Yeah, he's a hero, isn't he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Without shadow of a doubt.
Great. Okay. Well, to return to the album itself, One Hand on the Starry Plough, just a couple more questions to round things off. So I actually have a question, something that came up when I listened to the album at London Celtic Punks. We were given the honour of a sneak preview, shall we say? And there's a track on the album, track number 8, called Dan. Whose lyrics actually mention Cork City and Michael Collins, which we've touched upon a bit. But I just wanted to know, out of curiosity, is Dan based on a real character from your life, or is he actually fictional?
No, he's real. He's real, real as hell, and everything in the song really happened. The Dan in question is a guy called Dan Donnelly.
It is Dan Donnelly. Okay, fair enough.
From Belfast, who was in the Wonder Stuff and is often in the Levellers. So Dan, and more importantly than either of those wonderful accolades to him, he's a great singer-songwriter himself. And I got introduced to Dan by the great Miles Hunt, and he basically left us together for a day. And the opening lines: I first met Dan on a mountainside. He was eating wild berries, and he was barely alive.
Yeah.
But they're true because Miles said, "Oh, you two get to know each other, and then we'll all have a sing song tonight at my local pub out in the Shropshire countryside." And as soon as we got out of Miles's car, Dan, we were kind of going up a mountain called the Stiper Stones, and Dan started to forage in the berry bushes on the deck and eating them, and I was just down. And I didn't know him, you know. I'd met him like 10 minutes before. "Oh, what are you doing, mate?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm fucking starving." "Well, have you not had your dinner?" You know, it was like 3 o'clock. Didn't you have anything at dinner time? And he was like, he goes, "Oh, no." And so it came out that he lived in his car, and he drove from village to village, town to town, gig to gig, open mic to open mic, earning enough money to drink. And then he'd kip in his car, or if he could get his head down somewhere, then he'd go to the next place. And this is how he was living, you know, he like itinerant. And I was just like fascinated, just going, "How'd you survive?" And he goes, "Oh, much longer I can do it." And he'd been in New York doing the same similar thing. And he said, we got up to the top, we walked back down, we're getting on like a house on fire. He goes, and he could tell I was obsessed, a hibernophile. You know, we could tell I was obsessed with the old sod, and he said, "I'll book us a tour. If you want to go and play in Ireland, I'll book us a tour." I'm, all right, mate. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, we had a great night out, and about 2 weeks later, he goes, "I booked the tour," and I was
Right.
like, "This is in 2010," and I went, "Okay, yeah, yeah. What's going on?" And he goes, "Right, we've got 6 shows," and and in the entirety of those 6 shows, 34 people watched us out of the whole thing, and we went all over the island,
Uh-huh.
uh, and it was a disaster. And
Yeah, it sounds like it, unfortunately. We've all had those experiences of playing in front of.
yeah,
I
but
played in a rock band down south. Sometimes you play to 10 people. It's a little disheartening, isn't it?
well, it would have been, but he booked the tour, and it was in a month from when he booked it. And I always, who's going to come? And he goes, "Oh, don't worry, I'll put something on Facebook." But it was all a disaster. Derry got cancelled because we missed the ferry because he was messing around Lime Street with his now wife, crying on the platform. And Belfast, was nobody there. It's his hometown. The people who came were my mates. Down to
Wow.
Cork, down to Clonakilty, up through Limerick and Galway, and so nobody came. But I had the time of my life, and it was a wonderful week. I swear to God, it was a wonderful week. And the middle eight to the song in Cork City,
Yeah.
I'd spent a lot of time talking about. I was just finishing my masters then, and Dan wasn't. He had no interest in Irish history at all, or rather, he was saying nothing. And he's from Belfast, and we'd stayed at his mum and dad's house. And they'd lived out near Stormont, and I was talking to his dad. His dad was into it when we stayed there, but Dad doesn't care about that. I was brought up with it. I'm not bothered about it until we got to Cork City, and he was really, really drunk, and we got in a taxi, and to be took to our digs, and I said to the taxi driver, "Can you tell us where the city was burnt out by the British in the Tan War, in the
Yeah.
Revolutionary War, because the British burnt the entirety of central Cork." And a fellow went, "Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah," because I was just doing a master's in it. I was interested in this sort
Of
of stuff.
course.
Dan, yeah, you fucking, you traitorous bastards! Started shouting at the taxi driver. I was going, what are you talking about? Leave the guy alone. What's going on? He goes, "No, no, they sold us into slavery. They sold us into slavery." And he's talking about the treaty that Michael Collins brought back from London, which gave away the 6 counties in the north.
Yeah.
I went, "You're not interested in this sort of stuff." "I am when I'm pissed."
Yeah,
We
suddenly he
spent
came
the
to life.
taxi driver. Taxi driver was like, and the taxi driver chases us out of it. And we get to the thing, and I went, "What are you kicking off for?" He goes, "These fuckers here in Cork and everywhere down south, they're free state bastards," which, if you know anything about your Irish history,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like, it was, I mean, I'm laughing now. I was going, I didn't know you knew about it or you cared about it. I don't want to talk about it. Don't want to talk about it. So anyway, the day after, we woke up with a hangover, and I went, "So can we go and see where Michael Collins was shot?" If you don't mind, fuck off. But he took me anyway.
Okay. Wow.
And it was really funny. It was what the reason why it was funny is because even to this day, this is like 12 years later, and he hasn't mentioned it since. I often rib him about it and go, "You're only interested in Irish history when you're pissed, aren't you?"
And he just doesn't react really. He just doesn't go up to it.
Have you ever met Dan Donnelly?
No.
No, he's an absolute sweetheart. He's a beautiful human being, and I've had many, many great nights with him. And he runs a fantastic venue up in Sunderland now called the Peacock,
The
which I
Peacock.
did
Okay.
to reopen my musical world after the pandemic. My first show was there. We did a great sold out show that night. He
Awesome.
runs it with a fella from the Future Heads, so and
Uh-huh.
they got a great thing going there. So Dan is an active part of my life, and I sent him the song. I don't know if he was honoured or appalled or whatever. I'll find out next time I see him.
Okay, well, good. Now I know it was Dan Donnelly because since it mentioned Michael Collins, I thought it could have been. Have you heard of a historical character called Dan Breen? I thought it might have been a reference
Yeah,
to him,
yeah.
but
No,
no, it was Dan Donnelly. Okay, well, there we go. And anyone watching who listens to that song can now know what it's about.
Well, the thing is,
Okay.
the key payoff to the song is that he was on the floor when I first met him, and by the end of the song, he's got something really, truly worth living for, and
Yeah.
that's his children.
Uh-huh.
So that's the whole point of it, really.
Oh, how many children does he have?
He has two. He has two
Okay.
children. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. Rudy
Um,
and Cecilia.
Rudy and Cecilia. And
Yeah, yeah.
Rosalita's the name of your daughter, isn't it? Named
Yeah,
after
Rosalita,
these.
yeah, after a
Yeah.
Bruce Springsteen uh, name. So me and Dan are hoping that Cecilia and our Rosie get a band together when they get older. Kick
That'd
our
be
asses.
that'll be good.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to sort of close, is there if there was one person that you could devote one hand on the Starry Plough, your upcoming album to, who would it be?
Oh,
How's that for a question to end off on?
my gut reaction would be to say Tony Kiley, who's my producer and one of my best friends.
And
Uh,
drummer in Amsterdam, right?
he was drummer in. I came across him in the Blow Monkeys. He was the drummer in the Blow
Oh
Monkeys
yeah, that was it. The Blow Monkeys. Yeah.
when they were big in the 80s, and then he drummed for Christy Berg for 25 years.
Oh,
Now
did he now?
the thing about Tony Kiley is that this whole thing, me, Ian Prowse, the singer and songwriter, it's half Tony Kiley. You know, I mean, I write all the songs and go out and play them live and everything, but the vision of what we do, what we create, the music that we make is half me and half Tony Kiley, and we discuss it and we do whatever we got. He engineers it and he produces it and provides the enthusiasm and the know-how and also the insight and he's the spiritual center of everything that we do. So I'd say I'll dedicate it to him, but it's already his anyway. so so I'll just say, oh, Rosie, like I do for everything. You know, all of me, the music that I make these days is passes through some muse or filter where I'm inspired by my daughter. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's lovely.
Yeah.
She's heard it already, I'm assuming.
She's sick to death of it.
Okay, well,
And she tells me so.
no,
Shut up with that. I've heard that one to death.
nice brutal honesty, but I'm sure she's proud as well. I'm sure she's
Oh,
very proud. How old is she now then?
she's 10 now, yeah.
She's
10.
10. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, so just last but not least, then tell us where people can. The album's coming out on February the 11th. Tell us where people can get it or listen to it.
If you want the beautiful purple celestial vinyl with a wonderful brochure that the label have done, which comes with it with all the lyrics, it's a wonderful piece. Or the souvenir CD with the booklet and all of that, then just go to the amsterdam-music.com website. You best be quick for the vinyl because I think there's not that many left and there won't be any more printed after that. And we're going on tour with Elvis Costello this summer as well. So
Yes, you're back with Elvis, aren't you? That's good.
yeah. So so go there, amsterdam-music.com. If you just want to hear the music and you want me to starve in the gutter, then just listen to it on Spotify like everybody else. Spotify theft, as I call it.
Spotify. Yeah, it's I've been working on my Spotify profile, but I do wish musicians were paid a bit more, especially when they've got quite a few thousand streams behind them.
Yeah.
The
I
biggest.
counted mine. It's been something like 1 million streams of my music, for
Well,
which
that's
I've paid nothing.
Yeah, I
You
know
know,
you get paid 0.4 cents, which is about 0.3p per stream, which is sod all, quite frankly, isn't it? I think it should be higher because I doubt any of the people at the top are short of cash. You know, it's just it's people using musicians, which is what's always happened.
well, come the glorious day, we'll have we'll get our just rights for the hard work and our hard fought for creativity.
Yeah, we've just got to keep going, and I'd like to think that when Christy picked up Merseyside, that that was a reward for a lot of hard work. I think it's
Yeah,
something that if we
it's not about
if
money.
we stick around and work at it for long enough, we'll get some sort of reward. I
Well,
think.
this is it. I mean, was thinking about this the other day. My entire life, so I've never had a job, a proper job.
Good for you.
Yeah, from the age of 17, I've basically entered into voluntary poverty. Apart from the time when we were, 5 or 6 years of Pele, when we were signed to a major label, then it was straight back down the greasy pole to more voluntary poverty. And I did that, and I have no complaints about it, because it meant two things. It meant that I was utterly devoted to and concentrating on my music, and it also meant that you know nobody could tell me what to do or what not to do. This is who I am. I'm a musician, death or glory.
Yeah.
So while all my mates were buying houses, having families, going on expensive foreign holidays, I never got to do any of that. But I don't mind. And also, as my oldest friends would say, we've all been getting up at 7 o'clock in the morning for 40 years. You never have. So I'll buy that.
Yeah. It's I have a job, but it's only 30 hours a week. I'm not going back to working 40 hours a week in my life as long as I live, unless it's on
Your life's
something that
yours,
I
mate. Your
truly.
life belongs to you, not to anybody else. So you do whatever, gets you through the night.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, what I earn from my job is enough, but then it gives me more time and more energy to do what I really love, which is music, basically, and writing a little bit as well. I wrote a novel about Irish music, but even that was about music, so I'm really just a musician.
Yeah. Good for you, mate.
Mhm. All right. Well, cool. Then all that remains for me to say is thank you very much, Ian, for a fantastic interview and for a lot of insight into the new album and the backstory. So,
Thanks for having me on, mate.
of course, no worries. One Hand on the Starry Plough is the new fourth solo record by Ian Prowse, coming out on February the 11th on Kitchen Disco Records. I've been Andy Beck on behalf of London Celtic Punks. Keep your eye on the webzine at londoncelticpunks.wordpress.com for all updates from the Celtic music world. And you can also catch us on Twitter and on Instagram. That's at Celtic Punks. And we're also on Facebook and on YouTube. So thanks for watching and Slanjava. All the best. Take care, Ian, and very good luck with the album.
See you later, Andy.
See you later.